Good morning, students. Welcome to Zoology webinars of Model School for Senior Intern. Students, in the previous session of Zoology, Prashanti ma'am was discussing about and making us understand about the neuronal system, isn't it? Now, in today's session, we'll learn about somatic and autonomic. In autonomic, we have to cover about parasympathetic and sympathetic. And also, we should also get familiar with the differences between both the systems. Okay, at the end, if the time permits, ma'am will also cover about the reflex arc and also the reflex action. Okay, have a good day, children, and have a great learning. Please keep the notes ready so that you can start making the running notes. Okay, today we have with us Prashanti ma'am from Mulkanuru, Chigurumamadi from Karimnagar district. Madam, good morning.
Good morning, madam.
Yes, please continue the session, madam.
Okay, madam. Thank you, madam. Good morning, dear students. Today, we shall continue with the third session under the chapter Neural Control and Coordination. Today, we shall learn about the somatic neural system, autonomic neural system, and reflex. We shall also know about the differences between sympathetic and parasympathetic neural systems and also about reflex action and reflex arc. In our previous session, we have learned about the central nervous system. Actually, what is nervous system? The nervous system is the major controlling and the regulatory and communicating system in the body. Like other systems in the body, the neuron system, it has been classified into peripheral nervous system and central nervous system. We have learned it in the previous session, children, that is the central nervous system. This has been composed of brain and spinal cord. And the peripheral nervous system, this has been again further divided into somatic and autonomic nervous system. Somatic nervous system, this will be sending the commands to the skeletal muscles, whereas the autonomic nervous system, it will be sending commands to the visceral organs like might be the muscles or the glands. These are further divided into parasympathetic and sympathetic divisions. Somatic neural system. What is somatic neural system? It includes all the nerves that run to and from the spinal cord, and they send the information to and from the muscles and the senses. The individual is having the control of this somatic nervous system. So this is also called as voluntary nervous system. So we can say, children, under the somatic neural system, that is, it is been sending the command, might be the movement, etc. That is, which is under our control. Here we find the neurons, children, that is sensory neurons and motor neurons. The sensory neurons, these will be transmitting the sensory information. They conduct sensory impulses from the efferent, that is neurons receptors, to the central nervous system or the spinal cord. Motor neurons, they transmit the message, that is they innervate the skeletal muscles and produce the voluntary movement. Sensory. You know about the sense organs and its functions. In this picture, children, here we are seeing that a person is being smelling the coffee or tea. So like taste, the sense of smell or olfaction is also responsible to chemical stimuli. The sensation of smell, it arises from the olfactory epithelium that is present in the nose and sends the information to the brain through the olfactory tract. Next, we go to the autonomic nervous system, children. This is also another subdivision of peripheral nervous system. It regulates body activities that are generally not under our conscious control. Okay, so somatic, it is under our conscious children, whereas autonomic, that is unconscious or not under our conscious control. Example, when you take cardiac muscles, smooth muscles, glands, etc. This autonomic nervous system, it is divided into two divisions, that is sympathetic division and parasympathetic division. So just see the picture, children. This is sympathetic and this is parasympathetic. Sympathetic nervous system. This allows the body to function under stress. It primes the body for intense skeletal muscle activity. Okay, so here this is these neurons in the sympathetic division, they arise from the thoracic region and also the lumbar regions, children. Whereas when you take parasympathetic region, this helps in the maintenance of the functions when the body is at rest and digest. So it will be innervating the nerves from the cranial region, that is from the brain, and from the sacral region, that is the end of the vertebral column. And the sympathetic nervous system, we can call this as a fight or flight system. That is, when a situation arises, either we have to fight or we have to escape from it. So it involves, that is the activities like exercises or any emergency or any embarrassment situations, our body's sympathetic nervous system becomes very active. Whereas when you take parasympathetic, so it is like a peacemaker, children. That is, it allows the restoration processes to occur, that is quietly and peacefully. Yes, here when we see, children, that is the sensory neurons and motor neurons are being seen. So here the sensory neurons, these are conducting the impulses from the sensory organs, and these are being sending to the brain or the spinal cord. From here, these are being again transmitted via the motor nerve to the effector organ, that is the muscle. And this is the pathway, children, that is autonomic and somatic. What did we learn under somatic, children? So that is, it has been conducting the command, that is the somatic command, which is under our control. Whereas when you take autonomic, autonomic means it is unconsciously, the information is being sent, that is being without our conscious. Okay, so here there is a difference, that is unconscious is autonomic, whereas under our conscious control is a somatic pathway. When you see, what are the functions of autonomic nervous system? So it functions as both emergency, that is fight or flight, and non-emergency, that is rest or digest. So this is helpful in maintaining the homeostasis of the internal environment. Just see this picture, children. Both the dogs are fighting. So that is, they have to fight. That is, suppose if anyone has come to attack, definitely we have to fight the situation. And next, when you see, if any dog comes after us, what we do, children? We just escape from it. Here we see the boy escaping from the dog. And the autonomous nervous system also functions as non-emergency, that is the rest or digest. That is, children, when we do not have any work, what we do? We just rest, relaxingly we be. So here is the picture that is employing relaxing in his free time. And this includes both the afferent and efferent pathways. What is the difference? So afferent pathway, this sends the sensory signals of the sense organs, might be of the pain, touch, smell, hearing, etc. These are being sent to the spinal cord. Okay, efferent pathway. So this is the motor nerves, children. So it sends the information of the movement, glands, etc. from the spinal cord to the target, that is the muscles or the glands. The somatic nervous system, this sends, that is over here, command to the skeletal muscles. These neurons, whether it might be sensory or motor, they extend, that is from the spinal cord or the central nervous system all the way. So these are under our control. And when you see children, that is the neurons, they are classified as we have learned, that is sensory neurons, motor neurons and interneurons. Sensory means it carries sensory information. Motor neurons means it carries the information of our movement. Interneurons means these are been connecting both sensory and the motor neurons. Then autonomous nervous system. This controls all the internal organs. We find many organs in our body, children, that is without our conscious recognition or effort of an organism, the body is able to function properly and smoothly. So this is all due to the autonomous nervous system. And it is also functioning involuntarily and reflexly. And autonomous nervous system, this is divided into two divisions, children, sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic means it is a stress response, that is fight or flight. When you take parasympathetic, it is called as relaxation response. So we'll see one after the other, children. First one, sympathetic division. So this is the sympathetic division, children. So these nerves are present on either side. So this originates from the spinal cord. So this sends the command, that is, it prepares the body for the intense physical activity. Okay, so from which parts of the spinal cord this sympathetic division arises? We are seeing, children, here we find the spinal cord is divided into cervical region, thoracic region, lumbar division and sacral region. So this sympathetic region originates in the thoracic region. So that is from T1 to T12 and also from the lumbar, that is L1 and L2 regions. So as it originates from the spinal cord of both the regions, that is thoracic and lumbar, it is called as thoracico-lumbar division. Then how does it send the signal? It takes the help of two nerve fibers. So they are preganglionic nerve fiber, children, and postganglionic nerve fiber. So here, children, the first nerve fiber arising from the spinal cord, it is called as preganglionic. So this is the connectivity, children, or the chain ganglia. From that, another nerve fiber arises. That is called as postganglionic nerve fiber. So these two nerve fibers, when you take, children, here, that is the preganglionic nerve fibers, they run into the ventral root of the spinal nerve. Though arise from the thoracico-lumbar division, they travel through the spinal nerve, and here they will be joining the sympathetic chain ganglia. What is the meaning of ganglia? It is a cluster of cell bodies. So from the preganglionic nerves, it will be forming a synapse at the ganglia, that is called as sympathetic chain ganglia. Again, it will be continuing as postganglionic nerve fiber. From there, it will be reaching the target organ, whether it might be the muscle or any gland. So here, just say, children, here these are the nerves, spinal nerves. This is the spinal cord. And here we find cluster of cells called as the ganglia. So we have to see the length of the nerve fibers, children. When you see in the sympathetic, so when does the sympathetic nervous system becomes active, children? When we are in tension. Okay, so here we find two types of nerve fibers. These are the preganglionic nerve fibers arising immediately from the spinal cord. See, just see, children, the arms are very short. Okay, next, when you see the postganglionic, means the nerve fibers which are arising later. So the postganglionic nerve fibers, the arms are very long. So both preganglionic and postganglionic nerve fibers, these are connected by chain ganglia. So this is the chain ganglia, children. So here this is both are being connected by the chain ganglia. And here, children, each segment of the spinal cord has 4 roots. This we have learned in the previous session, that is 2 dorsal roots and 2 ventral roots. This is the first little half we are learning, children. So here in the picture, so the 2 dorsal roots. So the sensory fibers, these are being afferent. Each dorsal root, this has spinal or dorsal root ganglion. This is the dorsal root ganglion, and it is also having two anterior ventral roots. These are motor and autonomic fibers. Okay, so both anterior and posterior roots, they will be joining at the mixed region that is called as a spinal nerve. In this way, the information might be sensory or motor. It is being carried to and fro towards the spinal cord. Here, this is the spinal nerve, children. So here, it takes the information from the sensory nerve. It forms a ganglion, and from there, again, it sends the information via the motor nerve to the target organ. So this ganglia, when you see the preganglionic neuron, so that is the first neuron arising immediately from the spinal cord. So here and here it is forming an interneuron, that is the connection that is called as the synapse, and from there it gets connected with the second neuron fiber, that is the postganglionic neuron. And here see children, the preganglionic nerve fibers, these are very short, and later it is divided into several branches. It has been going not only in a single chain, it has been distributed to the different regions. So that is when we are in high tension, the tension, in order to reduce the tension, it has been distributed to the different body parts. Okay, so over here, just say children, it has been moving to the heart, lungs, kidneys, liver, etc. So this is the information of the preganglionic and postganglionic. And here when you see the collateral ganglia, that is the preganglionic neurons that is arising immediately from the spinal cord, that is the cell bodies from T1 to T12 and lumbar L1 and L2, they live via the spinal nerve. So they enter the ganglia of the sympathetic trunk, they end at the same level. But when you see children, some branches, they will be sending more branches that may be above or below the level, and some will be ending as the collateral ganglia. So this had been formed in the abdominal pelvic regions. This is being seen in the front of the aorta. These include celiac ganglia, superior mesenteric ganglia, and inferior mesenteric ganglia. Here, just see children, here this is the ganglia we find that are being present in front of the aorta region. Yes, we have learned that in between preganglionic and postganglionic, it forms a synapse. So here it forms a synapse, and here a neurotransmitter is released. What is neurotransmitter? Neurotransmitters, these are the chemicals which transmit signals from a neuron to the target cell across the synapse. So in emergency, we immediately switch on to the sympathetic tone, children. So here the preganglionic nerve fibers, these are cholinergic. So, and these will release the neurotransmitter, that is acetylcholine. And even when you take the postganglionic nerve fibers, these are releasing, that is noradrenaline. These have the receptors, that is noradrenergic. So preganglionic nerve fibers release acetylcholine, and postganglionic nerve fibers, they release noradrenaline. So this is the synapse, children. Here when you see, that is it is a connection that mediates the information transfer from one neuron to the another neuron. So this is the synapse, and here this is the picture of the cholinergic synapse, and this has been releasing acetylcholine neurotransmitter. You see in this picture, children, here preganglionic nerve fiber, this is releasing acetylcholine, and the postganglionic nerve fiber, this will be releasing noradrenaline. And we have learned, children, that is the preganglionic releases acetylcholine, and postganglionic, this will be releasing noradrenaline. But there is an exception case, children, in the skin, that is over here. This postganglionic neurons, innervating the sweat glands. Okay, so these are releasing, that is acetylcholine as a neurotransmitter. Okay, so here this is an exceptional case, children. You have to remember it. So this is releasing acetylcholine. And let's see what are the effects of the sympathetic nervous system. As we have learned, children, this has been always active when we are under tension or under embarrassment. So it is called as fight or flight response. It is the preparation of the body to either run away from a situation or to stand and fight the situation. So that's why it is called as fight or flight response. It controls the body stress. Let's see its effect on the various organs, children. So it shows an effect on the heart. It increases the heart rate, cardiac output to supply the body, that is the blood within the oxygenated blood. Next, when you take, that is the respiratory system, it allows more airflow through the lungs. And it will be delaying our digestion, children, even though we take food, that is when we are in tension. And it shows also its effect on the urinary bladder, that is relaxation of the detrusor muscles, that is contraction of the urethral sphincter, and it helps, that is stopping the urine output. It also shows its effect on the eye, that is it dilates the pupils of the eye, and also it helps in opening the eye wide open when we are in tension or when we listen to any shocking news. What do we do, children? We open our eyes very widely, even we open our mouth also. And so that is in shock or tension. And also the skin, this increases the sweating and the erection of the hair. That is also to keep our body cool. So these are the various changes, children. Next, we go to the second division of the autonomic neural system, children, that is parasympathetic division. So this parasympathetic division, it is an anatomically defined division, that is where the motor information, this has been run in the cranial nerves and the sacral nerves. So what are the cranial nerves, children? Here that is the third, 7th, 9th and 10th cranial nerves. That is you have learned in your previous session, children. That is third one cranial nerve, that is oculomotor nerve, 7th one facial nerve, 9th glossopharyngeal nerve and 10th vagus nerve. And this also includes the sacral nerves, that is S2, S3 and S4. So here it is also having two types of neurons, children. By this only the information is being transferred to the particular effector organ. So when you see the preganglionic neurons of the parasympathetic system, so here these have been present both in the brain region, that is the cranial region, and also the sacral region of the spinal cord. So it is called as craniosacral division. Okay, so the axons of this division, as they are been coming from both the cranium and sacrum, it is called as craniosacral outflow. So just see the picture, children. The parasympathetic, here the pre-ganglionic neuron, it is very long, and the post-ganglionic, it has been very short, and this may be near to the target or sometimes embedded within the target also. So when you see here, that is the various body organs on which it shows its effect. So the parasympathetic nervous system, this is responsible for all the bodily activities that takes place when the animal is at rest, not tension, children. When we are rest, our normal body functions are under the control of parasympathetic nervous system. So here this begins in the medulla of the brain, that is also in the middle area of the spinal cord. One of the nerve in the medulla, that is the vagus nerve, which is the part of the body. It helps the control of the various organs like heart, lungs and digestion. Okay, so in this way it shows its effect on the various smooth muscles and also the glands. So it controls the activity of smooth and cardiac muscles and glands only when it is body is at rest. Sympathetic pathway. So here when we see the sympathetic pathway, children, the preganglionic nerves are very short. Its synapses, here this is a synapse, children, and this synapse with the postganglionic neurons. But whereas when you take the parasympathetic pathway, here the preganglionic nerve fiber is very long. It synapses with the postganglionic neuron. So here when you take the postganglionic, it is very short. Then what are the effects of parasympathetic? We have learned the effects of sympathetic, children. That is when we are in tension, what happens? Then when our body is very cool, relaxed, what are the effects? The effects of parasympathetic nervous system, that it is always active all the time. It is the most important component of the nervous system, which is involved in regulating the body functions in resting rate. So here it is called as rest or digest, and it helps to conserve and restore body energy. So in cranium, children, that is the preganglionic nerve fibers, that is the nerve fibers arising immediately from the cranium. They arise and they create a synapse. It might be one of the 4 parasympathetic ganglia. They are ciliary, that is pterygopalatine, submandibular, and otic. And they later, after the synapse, they send the postganglionic fibers to the smooth muscles. Then what are those organs? That is the eyeball, nasal mucosa, palate, pharynx, lacrimal glands, and the salivary glands. In cranium, the last component of the cranium, children, that is the vagus nerve. This will be extending to the thorax and the abdomen, and it will be sending the nerve fibers to the various organs like heart, lungs, and the components of the digestive system. And in the sacral, so here we learn this is the craniosacral. So in the sacral, it will be receiving the preganglionic fibers from 2nd, 3rd, and 4th sacral spinal nerves, and further it supplies nerves to the urinary and the genital systems. And what are the neurotransmitters of parasympathetic? So the neurotransmitters, children, this is it is acetylcholine. It is both in preganglionic and postganglionic nerve fibers. So it is the binding to the specific receptor. So it is called as cholinergic receptor. And here it shows an effect on the various organs. It is prevents abnormal increase in the heart rate. It keeps heart rate within the normal rate, children, or the normal limit. And when you take the respiration is also controlled, not increased breathing. And when you take, that is the contraction or the bladder muscles, and relaxing the smooth muscles present in the sphincter. So these are the various changes, children, taking place. And also it will be including the different types of nerves, children. We have learned that is parasympathetic is craniosacral division. Then what are the nerves are involved in the cranial? That is the 3rd, oculomotor, and here that is the 7th one, it is the facial, and the 9th one, that is the glossopharyngeal, and the 10th one, the vagus nerve. So these are the 4 cranial nerves and the sacral region. So it is called as craniosacral outflow. So when we compare, that is the somatic and autonomic, children, here somatic, here it will be sending the command, that is somatic command is being under our conscious. But when you take, that is autonomic, so that is not under our control. So might be the sympathetic or parasympathetic. Sympathetic, that is when we are under more stress, and parasympathetic when our body is very cool and when we are relaxed. Okay, so this will be innervating or sending the signals, that is from the sensory to the motor neurons, that is via the interneuron. And what are the transmitters? When you see here, that is the transmitters, it includes, that is acetylcholine in the preganglionic neuron in the sympathetic system, and noradrenaline in the postganglionic neuron. But whereas when you take parasympathetic, that it is acetylcholine in both preganglionic and postganglionic nerve fibers. And here there is, when we are in tension, there is increase in the heartbeat, our muscles get tensed, we get severe headaches, children, our respiratory system, our breathing rate increases, heart rate increases, and there is a disturbance in the endocrine system and also gastrointestinal system. And here, these are the various changes, children, that is about the eye, saliva, and the respiratory system, our heartbeat, our digestion, our adrenal medulla, and also the urinary bladder. What happens? So, sympathetic, that is the neural system, this will be helping when our heartbeat increases when we are in tension, whereas parasympathetic, these organs are activated when we are in a relaxed state. Just see with the organs pictures, children. Here, when you take here the eye, here it is the dilation of the pupil, whereas in the parasympathetic, it is the pupil is constricted. Okay, sympathetic, here it will be inhibiting the salivation, and here salivary glands, it stimulates the salivation. Next, when you take the heart rate will be increasing, children, when we are in tension, and here it slows down the heartbeat, means it is within the normal limit. Lungs, it will be dilating the bronchi, and here it will be constricting the bronchi. When you take the stomach, it will be inhibiting the digestion, and parasympathetic stimulates the digestion. And in this way, when you take a liver, it will be stimulating the glucose release, and here when you take, it will be the liver will be stimulating the bile release under the parasympathetic. And even when you take the bladder, it will be relaxing the bladder, whereas in the parasympathetic, it contracts the bladder. So in this way, it shows an effect on the various organs, that is when we are in tension or when we are in a relaxed situation. So here, just see in this picture, children, the sensory information, it is being sent from the spinal cord. The first nerve fiber is the preganglionic neuron, and it forms a synapse. This is called as interneuron, children, and this releases the neurotransmitter, that is acetylcholine, and this is being connected to the second nerve fiber, that is postganglionic nerve fiber. And here the postganglionic nerve fiber, it is having the neurotransmitters like noradrenaline or epinephrine. So what are the differences, children, between the somatic and autonomic? We have learned about somatic and also autonomic. Then what is somatic? So somatic is under our conscious control. But when you take autonomic, so that is without our conscious control. So it involves both afferent and efferent pathways, that is both sensory and motor. Here autonomic, it involves only the efferent pathway. And somatic is a voluntary activity, children, whereas autonomic, it is an involuntary activity. And here when you see the target organs, these are always stimulated into action. And whereas the autonomic, when you see this will be using different transmitters to transfer the information, might be like acetylcholine, norepinephrine, etc. And somatic, this is under our control. And autonomic, this is not under our control, children. These are the few differences we learn, that is of the somatic and autonomic divisions of the nervous system. Then what are the differences between sympathetic and parasympathetic? Let's see from one after the other, children, about its origin. Then where does the parasympathetic originate? It originates from the cranial region, that is, and also the sacral region. So it is called as the craniosacral. And when you take sympathetic nervous system, it is originating from the thoracic, that is T1 to T12, and lumbar, that is L1, L2. So it is thoracico-lumbar origin, children, and the parasympathetic is the craniosacral region. So this is the difference when you compare it from the point of view of the origin. Next, here when you see ganglia, what are ganglia, children? They are cluster of cells. Okay, so these have been forming a root between the preganglionic and postganglionic. So the ganglia in the sympathetic, they are linked to form a chain, whereas in the parasympathetic, they remain isolated. Okay, just say children here in the sympathetic, that is they are forming a chain. But when you take parasympathetic, they are isolated. When you take ganglionic nerve fibers, when you see that is the preganglionic, they are very short, and the postganglionic, they are very long in the sympathetic. Okay, so that is they are been taking the tension, stress, etc., and they are distributed to the various body parts. Whereas when you take that is parasympathetic, that is during the relaxed condition, so the preganglionic are very long and the postganglionic are very short. And when you take compare the neurotransmitters between sympathetic and parasympathetic, the neurotransmitter of sympathetic, that is adrenergic, and here it is parasympathetic, it is cholinergic. And when you see the activeness in the sympathetic nervous system, it prepares our body for emergency, that is fight and flight, that is it is able to face the stressful condition, children. But whereas when you take parasympathetic nervous system, it will be conserving and reserving the body energy, that is rest and relaxation. So when our body is very relaxed, we feel very happy. When you see the overall effect of the sympathetic and parasympathetic, here it is excitatory and also stimulating. That is under tension, this has been activated, children. So it acts like an accelerator in a car. When you take the parasympathetic nervous system, that is inhibitory, that it will be acting like a brake in your car, that is it slows down the body to keep in a rhythm. And when you take its effect on the various organs, when we compare, that is the sympathetic is called as fight or flight response, and parasympathetic, it is rest and digest response. So here, that is the pupil dilates in the sympathetic, whereas when you take in the parasympathetic, the pupil is constricted. When you take the heartbeat, it increases the heartbeat when we are in tension, and that in sympathetic, whereas in parasympathetic, it is slowed down, not that much of heartbeat. And when you take the blood vessels, they are constricted in the sympathetic, whereas it dilates in the parasympathetic. Next, when you take the digestive tract, so here it will be inhibiting the peristalsis in the sympathetic, whereas it increases the peristalsis in the parasympathetic. And when you take the salivary glands, the secretions, these are being decreased in sympathetic, whereas when we are very cool, when we are happy, we feel very hungry, isn't it, children? So it stimulates the secretions. And next you take pancreas, it inhibits the activity of pancreas. Under sympathetic and parasympathetic, it stimulates the activity of the pancreas. And the lungs also, children, it will be relaxing in the sympathetic and constricts the bronchi in parasympathetic. And when you take the kidneys, it increases secretion of renin in sympathetic and it decreases the secretion of renin in parasympathetic. When you take the urinary bladder, it inhibits the emptying of the bladder under sympathetic, whereas parasympathetic, it promotes the emptying the bladder. So here, children, when you see the pictures here, pupil is being dilated in the sympathetic, contraction of the pupil, and even the heartbeat, it becomes very high in the sympathetic, whereas it slows down the heartbeat to the parasympathetic. Even the digestion is being delayed in sympathetic, but it has been under normal function in parasympathetic. So in this way, it shows an effect on various organs when we are in tension and also when we are in relaxed stage. So these are the pictures, children. Here, what do you observe? So this is the bungee jumpers and also the skydivers. So here in these pictures, what kind of nervous system is active? Can you guess, children? Yes. Flying in the air or walking on the rope. So this is nearly tensed when we see, and also the people doing it also will be in a very tension. So it is the sympathetic atom, the sympathetic or nervous system, which is very active under these conditions. Even, for example, in a night time, if anyone knocks our door and if any picture or any image appears like this, which type of the division of the autonomic nervous system becomes active? It is the sympathetic children, and also walking in a forest all alone, it is sympathetic. So sympathetic is fight or flight. We have to fight the situation or we have to escape from the situation. So this is sympathetic children. And when we suppose some tiger is before us, so we have to attack the tiger or we have to run away from the tiger. Next we go to the reflex arc children. What is a reflex? So it is an involuntary response to the stimuli is called as reflex, and reflex arc, that is a route from the sensory reaching to the effector via interneuron, that is called as reflex arc. So it is an automatic, involuntary, unconscious thought that is responding to the stimulus is called as reflex action. Just see the picture, children. That is a person, he has unknowingly, he has caught a hot vessel. What will he do? He immediately will be withdrawing his hand. So the information is being moving to the spinal cord, that is a sensory neuron, and this information is again carried from the interneuron to the motor neuron to the effector muscle. So in this way, here he will be withdrawing his hand. So instead the information going to the brain, it takes a lot of time. So immediate response, that is from the spinal cord, it has been taking place. So in this way, involuntary unconscious response is called as reflex action. This has been discovered by Marshall Hall. He's an English neurologist. So according to him, reflex is an automatic response to a muscle or several muscles to a stimulus. So this reflex, this will be originating either from the brain or the spinal cord. And there are two types, children. They might be inborn, that are unconditioned, and the second one is acquired, that is conditioned. So here this is the reflex arc, children, that is the pathway of the reflex in the form of arc. So it is being carried from the sensory neuron. It is forming a synapse here, that is the interneuron. From there, through the motor neuron, it is been reaching the effector organ. So this anatomical pathway of the reflex in the form of arc is called as reflex arc. Then the components of the reflex arc are sensory, that is the sensory receptor. The second one is sensory neuron. The third one is interneuron. The fourth is the motor neuron. And the fifth one, it is reaching the effector, might be the muscle or a gland. So in this picture, children, so here the information, it is being carried, that is the stimulus via the sensory nerve, and here it forms a synapse or the interneuron. It reaches the spinal cord, and here this has been again connected to the next nerve fiber. This is the motor neuron, and this sends the stimulus to the effector target organ, might be the muscle or the gland. So in this way, it forms an arc. So it is called as reflex arc. So here the skin sensory neuron, it forms an interneuron here in the spinal cord, and again it is been sending the information or transmitting the impulse to the motor neuron, and it will be reaching the target muscle. So this is the reflex arc, children. The message is being passed through the sensory neuron. It reaches the interneuron, which has been present in the central nervous system or spinal cord. From there, it will be traveling, or it has been moving to the motor neuron, and at last it reaches to the effector organ. This is reflex arc. And here this is the picture showing the arc shape, children. The stimulus, it is been sending to the sensory nerve. Here it forms a synapse, and it is been continued by the motor neuron, and here and it reaches the effector organ, and here that that muscle will be responding, that is a movement is been taking place. So this is the arc resembling this is the reflex arc. So we can know that is the receptors, that is might be the skin, muscle, or the internal organs, and also the receptors of the sense organs like taste, smell, hearing, balance, and the vision. So these receptors are also activating, children. And when you see, this is the neurons, that is sensory neurons. This will be conveying the sensory information, that is whether it might be to the brain or the spinal cord. So reaching the brain, it takes more time. So immediately to get the response, it will be reaching the spinal cord, and spinal cord immediately responds to that particular information. So interneuron. So the interneuron, that is, it will be conveying the sensory information that might be from the brain or the spinal cord. It communicates between the sensory or the motor neurons and the central nervous system. The next comes the motor neuron. So that is the sensory information from the interneuron, it reaches the motor neuron. What is motor neuron? It conducts the motor output, that is about the movement. It is sending information from brain or spinal cord to that particular gland or muscle. So it reaches the effector from the motor, that is the muscle or gland or organ. It responds to the stimulus. So this is the picture, children. Here the sensory information, it is been moving from the sensory nerve, and here via the interneuron, it has been connecting to the motor neuron. From the motor neuron, it has been reaching the effector. Then what is the significance of reflex action?
It protects us from any sudden stimulus which may harm us. It also helps in the survival of an organism. So these are two types, children. Unconditioned reflex. So that is the inborn reflex. So that is the closing of eyes. That is when any light falls suddenly in our eyes. Sudden withdrawal of our hand when anything pricks, or when we touch any hot object. Blinking of the eyes. Coughing or sneezing. Baby holding hand. So that is a born baby also holds the hand. That is a grasp reflex. Salivation. Conditioned reflex, this is the acquired reflex, children. So this is acquired through learning or through experience. So examples like conditioning of dog, the children tune to the school bell, children. That is morning you gather for the assembly, interval you go to play, and again in the lunchtime, that is midday meals, evening you rush out. So that is tuned to the bell. Cycling, car driving, and also that is typewriting. This is all condition. You learn and you gain perfection. Is in knitting or the grazing animals also, they avoid touching the electrical fence. So this is all been, the impulses is being carried through the spinal cord, children, that has been extending from the medulla oblongata till the lumbar region. So it conducts a nerve impulse to the brain, and this will be controlling the reflex action. So that is the spinal cord, that is which has been running all along inside the vertebral column, and which has been protected by the meninges. Already we have learned, children, that is arachnoid dura and pia mater, and here that is through the dorsal root. It has been sending the sensory nerve. It has been the interneuron in the gray matter. Again, it has been sending the impulse to the ventral root. And the reflex might be the cerebral or spinal. If it reaches the brain, it is cerebral reflex. If the spinal cord itself reflects first, it is called as the spinal reflex. So here, just say, children, the dorsal root, it is having the ganglions, and it has been joining. And here the ventral root, it is the both dorsal root and ventral root, they join to form the spinal nerve. So in this way, the sensory information is being carried to the spinal cord, and later by the synapse, it has been further continued and convey the information to the motor neuron to the particular target. So this is a picture, children, that is conveying the sensory information through the dorsal horn, and later the ventral horn connects to the motor neurons and conveys the impulse from the spinal cord to the organ. So this is the picture, children. Suppose we catch any hot thing. So this has been carried to the sensory organ, and this sensory nerve, it has been carried again to the dorsal root. Here it forms a synapse of the interneuron, and this is been moving to the motor neuron, and it reaches the particular effector, that is a target organ. So this is the knee jerk relax, children. So here suddenly a kicking movement. When we tap with a hammer, what we do, we suddenly stretch the muscle. The muscle gets the straightened. So here during some thyroid problem like that, doctors do this knee jerk reflex, children. Here this is also a sharp tap is being done on the patellar tendon. And this is also, children, when we have the pain. So here the information has been moving to the spinal cord. Again from the muscle neuron, it has been reaching and says about the pain. So children, we have learned about the somatic neural system, that is the sensory and motor neurons. Autonomic nervous system, that is under that we have learned about sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. We have also learned about the differences between sympathetic division, parasympathetic division. We have also learned about reflex action and reflex arc. Here is a small assignment, children. Why the sympathetic division is called thoracico-lumbar division? Why the parasympathetic division is called craniosacral division? List out the difference between sympathetic and parasympathetic neural systems in man. Distinguish between somatic and autonomic neural systems. I thank Additional Director Sir Satyanarayan Reddy, Rajiv Sir, Joint Director, my Principal and Coordinators Vijay Lakshmi Madam, Shailaja Madam and the webinar team.